I work with the Coventry and Rugby GP Alliance, which is a spin-off of the NHS, and I work as a project officer, just managing the primary care services that we do in the community. It was quite alienating, to be honest, because as soon as the baby was born, the midwife asked, "Oh, do you want to breastfeed?" Like, basically give the first feed. And I just said, yeah, I want to try breastfeeding. And like the whole audience was there and they were just waiting for me to whip my boob out and put the baby on there. And I was thinking, oh, is this like, can I not do it in private? And they said, no, we just want to, first of all, help you to show you how it's done. And also check that the baby's actually feeding and that there's a correct latch or something. So I said, okay, fair enough. And then I breastfed in front of, I think it was 3 midwives at the time, and didn't get the latch on. I didn't realize it was a hard thing to get the latch, and she wasn't particularly interested in feeding. And it was, we found out later. So they monitored us for 24 hours and they wouldn't discharge us until they know that she's had a good feed. But she just wasn't feeding very well. And it turned out it was because she had quite bad jaundice. So that was her birth story, and his birth story is that they had acute jaundice and they were hospitalized for about 8 days for both of them. And that's why she wasn't feeding. It wasn't, I think latching was a factor, but they weren't feeding as well. They weren't interested. So that was really stressful. So we just did bottle feeding for the first few days, I think. And then I was just determined. I thought, what's wrong with me? I want to get this milk going. There was expressing as well at the same time, tried to get my milk supply up, but it wasn't as high as some women's I've noticed now. But I was just so determined. I really wanted to breastfeed. The Medela machines, they were amazing. They have loads of pumps freely available. I thought I'd have to wait in a queue, but I'd never had that problem, even though when she was born, it was the busiest day of the year. It was the 26th of September. And when he was born, it was pretty busy as well. We've never had a problem with having to share the pumps. They also have like breast pumping rooms. So if you're in neonatal ward, if you're in the labour ward, or if you just want to pump by your bed, they're really accommodating. And they provide, if you don't have your stuff, they provide all of the, back in the old days, it was like, they gave a lot of things that were different for him and for her. So back then they would give like sterilizing liquid between your pumps. You would clean it yourself, but with him they give a sterilizing bag and you've got to clean it in the microwave. So it just depends on what the standards are at the time, but they were very supportive. Definitely my mum, because at the beginning, especially when I was in hospital, I would have just whatever they'd give. So food, in terms of food intake, she was very much, you've got to eat constantly to get your milk supply up. And I didn't truly appreciate it until afterwards, how much you need to eat. So she would always say to me, if she wasn't with me in hospital, she'd say to me, have you eaten? I'm like, I've just eaten. And she'd be like, when did you eat? A couple of hours ago. You need to eat. If you want to get your milk supply, you've got to eat. And I'm like, yeah, I did. I've eaten more than I normally do. So I'd have my breakfast, lunch and dinner at the hospital, and they give very small portions, like tiny. And I'd have some snacks in between, tea and coffee, biscuits. But when my mum's started to send food to the hospital for me to have, because I used to get so hungry, she'd give me some supplementary meals. I noticed that my milk supply just went up straight away. So she said, after you feed, you need to have I think it was like a glass of milk or a cup of tea or something, or a glass of water. Make sure you have that and have like a flapjack or something with it. And I would make sure that I did that after every feeding, and it really did make a difference. There was another person who helped as well. Well, my sister, she helped because when my husband wasn't available, she helped a lot. She was quite grossed out actually, but even then she never discouraged me. we would go through the whole journey together. She would laugh, cry, get grossed out, obviously, because then you have shooting breast milk and rock hard boobs. And yeah, she also helped. And also the breastfeeding team, they helped when I was absolutely I was so sad about my milk supply. Liana wasn't happy when we got home. I could tell she wasn't full. So the infant breastfeeding team, we went to visit them at the Gosford place. They were really, really helpful. They just, tried to encourage me to carry on and just that this is very natural, very normal. And I also had support from my GP because I had psoriasis breaking out in that area. So it was quite like medically, I think it probably would have been better if I weaned her off completely to bottle feeding, but I just carried on. So the doctors were also aware of it. So it was a very big team of us through my journey. The midwives and the nurses, they helped so much in ways that I wouldn't have learned at home. My mum said that it was very different when she gave birth to how it is now. They looked after you. She said even to the extent, like now you kind of get discharged and they don't care, but back when we were born, the midwife would carry the baby carrier out to the car, escort the parents, make sure everyone's okay. And I was like, yeah, we don't even get our food to our table. If you've got stitches, if you've had a really bad birth and you still have to walk up and get your food. I don't know if that's just her experience. So I was born in Ireland and everybody else was born in Hull. So I don't know if it was just a locality thing that they did that, but they seemed a lot more a bit more helpful than they are now. My husband, he was supportive of both, but he was very much in the background. He didn't really have an influence on anything. So I really needed those like strong supportive people to keep me going. And I did have depression at the start. I did think, what's wrong with me? Why can't I feed my child? My child is clearly hungry, and it was a really big decision to go back to mixed feeding, because when we left the hospital, I think it felt like I told the midwife, yeah, I'm going to breastfeed, and it was like I was bound to it, by word, but actually it's nothing like that. You just do what you need to do. I didn't actually expose myself as having postnatal depression. No, I just kind of I was really just down all the time. I actually would sit in my room, the curtains would be drawn, my husband would be at work, and I just wanted the day to end. I just wanted him to come home and help, and I was just with Liana, and I'm constantly trying to feed her, but actually sitting there and feeding her was doing nothing, because I needed to get up, I needed to feed myself, I needed to make sure I was okay to then feed her. It was just not a very nice place to be, and talking about it helped. Like when I started to acknowledge it was a problem, I spoke to my sister, I spoke to my mum, I spoke to the feeding team, and actually even going out to visit them, because those I think the clinics were, I think they do home visits actually, but I went to an outpost clinic and I went to see them, and that process of going to see and acknowledging I have a problem, it really helped. Just talking about it and having people know, like it was more because I spent a lot of time with my family, having them know, oh, actually, my mom, she spoke to my husband, and them two, between them, decided it wasn't good for my mental health to stay at home. So after I think 2 weeks at home, so the first month I was at home, then I moved to my mum's house for 4 weeks, and she looked after me. So second month, yeah, she looked after me. If she didn't do that, honestly, I don't think I would have carried on breastfeeding. She showed me what I was supposed to do. She showed me what I was meant to eat and how I meant to look after myself and how to put Liana to sleep, just everything in general. But it really helped with my feeding. I didn't go out for a long time so I was at home, and I didn't really have that problem initially. Rayyan, stop that. But when we did start going out and about, I was picking places that were child friendly or baby friendly. There was this list of places that I think it was the infant feeding team, they gave to us, where there were restaurants, places to visit with feeding areas and like lots of child friendly areas. And I used to use that quite a lot. If I was to go out, I'd make sure that I visit one of those selected places. Whereas now I'm not that bothered. I just, like, you know, like we were talking, you could do it discreetly, just wear like the appropriate like clothes. But back in with Liana, I had like a feeding, like a napkin. It wasn't so bad. I don't think feeding really stopped me doing anything, but I did feel more comfortable going out with somebody rather than going out by myself. I'm not sure if that's to do with feeding or if it was just everything in general. People don't talk about it. I don't even know. I don't know if it's even, is it people don't talk about it because they don't want to think about it, or is it because it's just part of the way we are. We just, this is it feels like it's almost like, you know, when you know how when you complain, oh my god, the birthing is really really painful, but then again there's how many people around the world who have given birth and it's like it's all fine. It's like it's almost like it's a normal thing. Is that why it's underplayed? Because it's normal, it's just part of the passage, you know. For me, it's always like, I don't really want to show my skin, but you know, it is a bit uncomfortable, but if you wear the right clothes, I think you can manage it. And I guess that comes with confidence. I'm very outgoing as well, so I'm always out and about. I think that this journey is very, very scary, especially for new mums, and the whole concept of feeding, it is underplayed. People don't talk about it as much as they should. Even if I went to NCT classes, we had one session on feeding and it was very black and white. You either bottle feed or you breastfeed. They don't talk about all the colourful bits around expressing, around mixed feeding. They don't talk about all that. So my advice would be for new mums to just see how you go. Try both, you know, if you wanted to, or try your preferred one. If it doesn't work out, don't get too stressed, because what do they say? Happy mummy is a happy baby. So even if you if you wanted to breastfeed and it didn't work out and you're getting stressed about it, it doesn't mean that your baby is going to be happier. They might be even happier with a bottle, you know. So definitely don't get too stressed out. Try to make sure that your child is happy with either method. And what was the other thing? If your milk supply doesn't come, then it doesn't mean that it's completely not going to come. Just kind of take time. I think for me it took 3 months for it to properly come through. Just persevere.